Black Hollow had always been a quiet American town, but everything changed the night a teenage girl ran screaming through the streets, claiming she saw a pale, ghostly nun standing outside the abandoned Black Hollow church. The adults didn't believe her, until the church bells began ringing at exactly midnight, echoing across the town even though everyone knew the old tower had no electricity and no functioning ropes. Sheriff Dalton drove out to investigate, expecting kids playing a prank. But when he stepped inside, he froze. Deep claw marks shredded the altar, and the candles, long melted down decades ago, were burning again with blue flames. On the wall, written in what could only be blood, were the words, "She has risen." The air grew ice cold. Something moved in the shadows, just beyond his flashlight beam. The sheriff backed away, heart pounding, but the church doors slammed shut behind him with a deafening boom. A whisper slid through the dark like a blade. "You're too late." The sheriff ran out into the night, realizing the girl was right. Something old, something unholy, had returned to Black Hollow, and the nightmare was only beginning. Dr. Emily Carter, the local historian, could feel unease spreading across Black Hollow like a sickness. Reports of strange chanting near the abandoned monastery grew by the day. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily began digging into town archives and discovered records of a forbidden convent that once stood on the hill in 1893. The documents described a horrifying massacre, believed to have been committed by a nun who had gone mad. That night, as Emily worked late in her basement office, she heard faint chanting coming from the darkness behind her. The lights flickered. She turned slowly, expecting to find her cat, but instead found 3 ancient rosaries dangling from the ceiling, tied into tight knots, swinging gently as if touched by unseen hands. Her breath caught when a whisper brushed against her ear, speaking her name with chilling clarity. Emily stumbled back, dropping the old manuscripts. The shadows shifted, forming the faint outline of a figure in a long veil. Emily ran upstairs and locked the door, trembling. She thought she was alone. She thought it was just history. But now she understood. The past was reaching out, and whatever had happened in 1893 had awakened again. Mary Finch, one of the most beloved teachers in Black Hollow, began to change in ways no one could ignore. Her students whispered that she spoke in 2 voices during class, one gentle, one deep and cold, like something crawling up from the grave. Parents noticed she stared blankly into space at times, muttering in Latin words no one could comprehend. During parent night, Mary suddenly collapsed, her body shaking violently. When the medics tried to help her, she sat up with inhuman strength, eyes turning pitch black for a brief, horrifying moment. "He is coming," she said, but it wasn't her voice. It was something darker. The incident spread panic across town, prompting the desperate arrival of Father Reyes, a priest sent from New York after hearing reports of unnatural events. When he examined Mary, he stepped away with visible fear. "This is Valak's mark," he whispered. "The demon in the veil has crossed into your world." That night, as Mary lay restrained in the hospital room, the lights dimmed without warning. A silhouette of a nun appeared behind the curtain, still and silent. Mary opened her mouth, and a scream tore through the hospital that didn't sound human. While the town struggled to understand the terror growing around them, Emily Carter searched deeper into the forgotten history of Black Hollow. At the back of the old church library, she discovered a hidden compartment containing the diary of Sister Abigail, the only surviving nun from the 1893 massacre. The diary's pages were brittle, written in shaky ink that seemed to tremble with fear. Sister Abigail described how the monastery had unknowingly been built over an ancient gateway used for forbidden rituals. The final pages revealed that Valak had once managed to take physical form, slaughtering the entire congregation before Sister Abigail performed a last, desperate sealing ritual. But one line chilled Emily to her core. "The seal weakens with time. If the bells ring thrice, run." Before Emily could process the warning, the old church bells echoed across town. 1, 2, 3. Windows shattered in Emily's home as a freezing wind whipped through the room, scattering the diary pages. The lights went out. In the dark reflection of her window, Emily saw a nun standing behind her, face hidden by shadows. When she turned, the figure vanished. But the message was clear. Valak was loose, and Black Hollow was doomed. The town spiraled into chaos when midnight struck. People claimed to see a ghostly nun standing on rooftops, appearing in mirrors, and watching from the edges of forests. Dogs barked hysterically. Children woke screaming, saying the lady in the black veil had been sitting on their beds. In the distance, the church bells continued ringing without pause, vibrating through every home. As the terrified townspeople gathered in the streets, the doors of all three churches in Black Hollow slammed open violently at the same time. A dark, swirling mass of shadows poured out from each doorway, moving like a living cloud. Father Reyes, gripping his cross tightly, shouted for everyone to run. The shadows slithered across the ground like serpents, extinguishing streetlights and filling the air with screams that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. The dead stirred in the graveyard, hands pushing through the dirt. Emily could feel the ground tremble beneath her feet. The veil between worlds had been torn open. Father Reyes gathered the few who hadn't fled and announced gravely that this was no haunting. This was a demonic war. And Valak, stronger than ever, had come to reclaim souls. Black Hollow High became the center of terror when strange events erupted during the school's emergency lockdown. After reports of ghost sightings in the hallways, the security team checked the cameras and froze in horror. The footage showed a nun gliding silently through the corridors, not walking, floating, her veil moving without wind. Lockers banged open and shut on their own. Students trapped in classrooms heard low chanting echo across the hallways, growing louder with each passing minute. The temperature dropped so sharply that breath became visible. When the fire alarms suddenly blared, smoke filled the cafeteria, but there was no fire. Only the silhouette of the nun standing in the haze, motionless yet watching. Panic exploded. Moments later, Mary Finch appeared at the school entrance, fully possessed, her voice layered with demonic echoes. She pointed toward the building and whispered, "He is here." The lights went out instantly. A deafening scream ripped through the entire school, shaking the walls. Emily and Father Reyes arrived too late. The front doors swung open as a flood of dark energy swept out. Whatever was inside the school now, it wasn't human. Emily and Father Reyes worked relentlessly to decipher the ritual needed to stop Valak once and for all. Through sleepless nights and fading hope, they pieced together Sister Abigail's final instructions. The demon could only be sealed again if someone willingly performed the sacred ritual inside the crypt beneath the monastery. But the ritual required a sacrifice, a life given freely. The town was crumbling. Shadows moved through the streets, whispering, clawing at windows. Fires erupted with no source, forming the faint outline of a nun's face in the flames. Phones glitched, screens flashing the words, "She returns." Emily felt the pressure of every soul depending on her. When she realized no one else could do it, she made her choice. She would enter the crypt. As she prepared, Father Reyes tried to stop her, but Emily knew the truth. Valak would not rest until its seal was restored. That night, lightning split the sky as Emily walked toward the monastery. Behind her, the town screamed under the demon's wrath. Ahead of her lay darkness, sacrifice, and the final chance to save Black Hollow. The crypt was colder than any winter Emily had ever felt. Every candle she lit burned weakly, as if struggling to survive against the oppressive presence filling the chamber. As she began the ritual, her voice trembled, but she continued despite the shadows twisting along the walls. Suddenly Valak appeared, emerging from the darkness with a twisted grin beneath the veil. The demon attacked her mind first, showing her illusions of loved ones dying, whispering lies, trying to break her resolve. Then it shifted into the form of Mary Finch, begging Emily to stop. But Emily pushed forward, reciting the final words of the sealing ritual as the room shook violently. Light burst from the circle she had drawn, engulfing the crypt. Valak screamed, a sound that shook the earth itself. Just when Emily thought she would be torn apart, everything went silent. The demon vanished. Black Hollow grew still. Emily collapsed, exhausted but alive. Days later, the town slowly returned to normal. People tried to forget. But miles away, at a small gas station, a little girl drew a picture of a nun with hollow black eyes. When asked who it was, she smiled and said, "She told me her name is Valak."